A billionaire dad buys an old house for demolition. But when he goes to tear down the dog kennel, he hears a voice inside and panics. The sky was still dark when Warren Cade parked at the entrance of Thornwood Manor. He checked his watch, 5:15 a.m. The workers would arrive in 45 minutes to start the demolition. Enough time for one last inspection. Warren adjusted his jacket against the morning chill as he surveyed the shadowy structure before him. The mansion had once been imposing. Now it was just another asset in his portfolio, an obstacle to be removed to make way for the lucrative condominium complex he planned to build. For $3.5 million for this ruin, he muttered to himself as he walked through the overgrown garden. It'll be worth every penny when we're done. At 48, Warren had built a real estate empire by buying old properties, demolishing them, and erecting modern structures. He wasn't a man for sentimentality. He was a man of business. His cell phone vibrated. A text message from Jackson, the demolition supervisor, confirming the crew would be on site at 6 o'clock sharp. Warren replied with a simple, "Okay," and pocketed the device. He liked to personally check each property before demolition. Details made all the difference in his projects. Instead of entering through the main door, he decided to walk around the mansion, assessing the land where luxury homes with lake views would soon stand. The property was extensive, with several auxiliary buildings scattered in the back, an old stable, a tool shed, and a stone dog kennel that seemed to have withstood time better than the rest of the structures. The dog kennel caught his eye. It wasn't in the main photos of the appraisal report. Warren checked the blueprint on his tablet, confirming it would be demolished along with everything else. He decided to take a closer look. Maybe the stone could be repurposed. As he approached the structure, he noticed something strange. The metal gate was ajar, swinging slightly in the morning breeze. A broken chain hung from one side. Warren frowned. The property was supposed to have been vacant and locked up for years. The last security report from 3 days ago mentioned no signs of trespassing. Probably teenagers looking for a place to drink, he thought, pushing the gate, which groaned on its rusted hinges. The interior was dark. Warren turned on his phone's flashlight, illuminating a corridor that branched into several compartments. It smelled of mold and abandonment. "Hello?" he called out, more by reflex than actually expecting an answer. "Is anyone here?" Silence was his only reply. He was about to turn back when he heard it, a soft, almost inaudible cry. Warren froze. The sound was fragile, muffled, but unmistakably human, and it didn't sound like an adult's cry. "Is anyone there?" he asked again, his voice echoing off the stone walls. The crying stopped abruptly. A shiver ran down his spine. Warren wasn't a man of irrational fears, but something about that sudden silence deeply disturbed him. "I just want to help," he said, cautiously advancing down the corridor, the beam of his flashlight cutting through the darkness ahead. That's when he heard a tiny voice, and so low he almost missed it. "Mommy." Warren's heart pounded. A child. Here. With demolition machinery arriving in less than half an hour. "Oh my God," he murmured, a sudden panic seizing him. He ran down the corridor, frantically lighting up each compartment. The demolition would begin with the auxiliary structures. This kennel would be one of the first to come down. "Where are you?" he called, no longer bothering to hide the urgency in his voice. "Please answer." In the last compartment, the beam of light finally found her, huddled against the wall. A small girl watched him with wide, frightened eyes. She couldn't have been more than 4 years old. Dark, matted hair framed a dirty face, streaked with dried tears. She wore an oversized t-shirt that served as a dress, and her bare feet were soiled and scratched. In her arms, she clutched a teddy bear as worn as herself. Warren's panic intensified. A child, a small child, was about to be buried under tons of rubble. "Hello," he said, forcing himself to soften his voice as he crouched down. "Don't be scared. I won't hurt you." The girl just stared at him, visibly trembling. Warren looked at his watch. 5:35. The workers would be arriving soon. There was no time to lose. He pulled out his phone and dialed Jackson. "Cancel everything," he ordered as soon as the supervisor answered. "What do you mean, Mr. Cade? The men are already on their way and—" "Cancel the demolition now." Warren rarely raised his voice, but the panic was evident. "There's a child in the kennel. A small child. For God's sake, cancel everything immediately." He hung up without waiting for a response and turned his attention back to the girl, who remained motionless, clutching her bear. "I need to get you out of here," he explained, trying to sound calm. "This place isn't safe. I'll take you somewhere warm, with food. Is that okay?" The girl didn't respond. Her eyes, large and scared, remained fixed on him. "Are you cold?" Warren asked, noticing her shivering. Without waiting for an answer, he took off his jacket and offered it. "This will keep you warm." To his surprise, the child didn't flinch when he approached to put the jacket over her shoulders. The fabric swallowed her whole, but she seemed to relax a little with the warmth. "Are you hungry?" he tried again. "I have chocolate in the car." At the word chocolate, something subtly changed in the girl's gaze. "Let's get out of here, okay?" Warren extended his hand hesitantly. "Can I carry you?" "It'll be faster." When she didn't protest, Warren took it as a yes. Carefully, he picked her up, surprised by how light she was. The girl didn't resist, just adjusted her bear so it was secure between them. As he exited the kennel, Warren spotted the first trucks arriving. Jackson ran towards him, his face a mask of confusion. "Mr. Cade, I cancelled everything as you ordered. But what's going—" He stopped abruptly, noticing the child in his boss's arms. My God, it's true. There really was a child in there. "She was in the last compartment," Warren explained quickly. "The demolition is suspended until further notice. I need to take her to a hospital." "But the costs of the delay, sir." "The contractual penalty." "I don't care about the costs," Warren interrupted. "A child almost died today. The costs are irrelevant." Without waiting for a reply, he hurried to his car, shielding the girl from the curious stares of the workers who were starting to gather. In the car, he seated her in the back and turned on the heater. The morning was cold, and she was still trembling despite the jacket. "Better now?" he asked, adjusting the temperature. The girl didn't answer, but her eyes watched his every move, attentive and suspicious. Warren searched the glove compartment and found a chocolate bar. He unwrapped it and offered it. "Here, it's for you." She hesitated for a long moment before reaching out her small hand and taking the chocolate. She didn't eat it immediately, just held it, as if waiting for permission. "You can eat it," Warren encouraged. "It's all yours." Only then did she take a small bite, her eyes never leaving his face. After the first bite, she devoured the rest quickly, confirming what Warren suspected. She was famished. "We're going to the doctor, okay? Just to make sure you're all right." Warren started the car and drove away from the property, watching in the rearview mirror as the girl had curled up in his jacket, creating a protective cocoon around herself and the bear. During the 20-minute drive to the nearest hospital, he tried to start a conversation several times. "What's your name? Where's your mom? How did you end up in that place?" No answer. The girl remained silent, as if she had forgotten how to speak, or as if she had decided not to speak anymore. At the hospital, Warren's imposing presence, his expensive suit beneath his absent jacket, his luxury watch, his authoritative tone, ensured immediate attention. A kind nurse took over the girl's care, who unexpectedly clutched Warren's hand when they tried to take her away. "It's okay," he assured, surprised by her reaction. "They just want to examine you, see if you're well. I'll be waiting here." The girl hesitated, her eyes seeking confirmation in his face. Finally, she let go of his hand and followed the nurse with reluctant steps, the bear firmly clasped in her embrace. While waiting, Warren made calls, first to his lawyer, explaining the situation and asking for legal guidance, then to his assistant, cancelling all his appointments for the day. Finally, to the supervisor, confirming the demolition suspension indefinitely. "Mr. Cade." Warren looked up. A middle-aged doctor observed him with a serious expression. "How is she?" he asked, standing up. "Come with me, please." Warren followed the doctor to a small office adjacent to the pediatric ward. "The girl is malnourished and mildly dehydrated," the doctor explained, consulting his notes. "She has some old bruises, but nothing recent or indicative of systematic abuse. I'd say she spent a few days without proper care. And why doesn't she speak? It could be trauma. Children react differently to extreme stress situations. Selective mutism is common in cases like this. She needs to feel safe first. Warren nodded, processing the information. Were you able to identify her? No. No documents. No identification. We've already notified the authorities and checked the missing children system, but so far nothing. It's as if she doesn't officially exist. Warren felt a knot in his stomach. What happens now? Well, physically she'll be fine. She'll need a special diet for a few weeks to regain proper weight. As for the psychological aspect, it's hard to say without knowing what she's been through. And legally. About that. The doctor adjusted his glasses. Child Protective Services has already been notified. A social worker should arrive any moment. As if on cue, a severe-looking woman knocked on the open door. Dr. Harrison? I'm Eleanor Michaels from Child Protective Services. She entered, directing an appraising look at Warren. And you must be Mr. Cade, who found the minor. Warren stood up, extending his hand. Yes, Warren Cade. Eleanor shook his hand briefly and turned to the doctor. How is she? The doctor repeated the diagnosis, adding that the girl could be discharged in a few hours, provided she received proper care. Great, Eleanor said, opening her folder. I've already arranged a spot at the state shelter. She'll stay there while we investigate her case and look for relatives. Warren felt a strange pang in his chest. Shelter. Yes, Mr. Cade. It's standard procedure. The shelter has adequate facilities and trained professionals to handle cases like this. Something in the clinical way she spoke deeply bothered Warren. He thought of the scared little girl he had found in that dark kennel. He thought of how she had clutched his hand, as if he were her only anchor in an unknown world. He thought of the almost non-existent weight of her body when he carried her. No, he said firmly, surprising himself. Excuse me. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. She's coming with me. Eleanor and the doctor exchanged glances. Mr. Cade, the social worker began, her tone condescending. It's not that simple. There are procedures, evaluations, legal requirements. Then tell me what I need to do, Warren interrupted, using the same decisive tone he employed in tough negotiations. I want to assume temporary guardianship of her while all this is sorted out. Eleanor studied him for a moment, as if trying to ascertain his intentions. Why? She finally asked. You have no obligation to this child. Warren had no ready answer for that, at least not one that made logical sense. How to explain the panic he'd felt hearing that cry in the kennel minutes before demolition? How to justify the absolute certainty that he couldn't just hand her over to the system and go back to his life? Because I found her, he said simply. And maybe that means something. Eleanor sighed, massaging her temples. Mr. Cade, I understand your humanitarian impulse, but there are protocols to follow. We'd need to do a background check, a home inspection, character interviews, and even then the final decision rests with the judge. Do whatever it takes, Warren responded, already pulling out his phone. My lawyer will be in touch today to expedite the process. In the meantime, I see no reason why she can't stay with me instead of going to an impersonal shelter. The doctor, who had been watching the exchange with interest, interjected, If you'll permit a medical opinion, stability is crucial right now. The girl has shown trust in Mr. Cade. She held his hand. Accepted food from him, that's significant. Eleanor considered for a moment. I can authorize emergency temporary guardianship, subject to judicial approval within 72 hours, she finally conceded. But I will need to visit your residence today, and you'll have to sign several documents assuming responsibility. No problem, Warren said, feeling an unexpected relief. When he returned to the room where the girl was, he found her sitting on the bed, already clean and wearing hospital clothes. Her bear had also been cleaned and rested in her lap. Her eyes subtly lit up when she saw him, although her face remained serious. Warren pulled up a chair and sat beside her. Hi again, he said softly. You look better. She watched him in silence, but something in her posture had changed. She seemed less tense, less scared. I was thinking, Warren continued, unsure how to proceed, that maybe you could come to my house for a while. I have a spare room, and we can buy you new clothes, and for your friend too, he added, pointing to the bear. The girl didn't smile, but her small fingers stroked the bear's worn fur, as if communicating the news to the toy. So, what do you think? Do you want to come with me? She didn't answer with words, but timidly extended her free hand and touched Warren's, a gesture so small and yet so monumental at the same time. At that moment, under the soft hospital light, an as yet unnamed bond began to form between two strangers whom fate had brought together through a half-open gate. Warren Cade, the ruthless businessman who tore down the old to build the new, looked at that silent child and knew, with a certainty that defied logic, that his life would never be the same. Warren's house sat atop a hill overlooking the city, a modern structure, all glass and concrete, with 3 floors and more windows than walls. There was something cold about its impeccable architecture, as if it were a space to be admired, not lived in. When the car pulled into the driveway, the girl looked out the window with wide eyes. She had probably never seen a house like it. "We're here," Warren said, trying to sound cheerful. "This is my house. Now it'll be your house too for a while." She didn't respond, just clutched the bear tighter to her chest. In the 2 days since he had found her in the kennel, she hadn't spoken a single word. The doctor assured him there was nothing physically wrong. Her voice worked perfectly. The problem lay elsewhere. Warren helped her out of the car. She wore new clothes, hastily bought at a department store on the way from the hospital. A simple blue dress, a light jacket, white shoes. She looked like a doll, so small and fragile. "Shall we go in? It's getting cold," Warren suggested, extending his hand. To his surprise, she accepted, intertwining her tiny fingers with his. It was a small but significant gesture. The main door opened automatically as they approached, part of the house's smart security system. The girl stepped back, startled. "It's okay," Warren assured her. "It's just the door. It opens by itself when we get close." They entered the spacious foyer, with its marble floor and floating staircase leading to the upper floors. Late afternoon light streamed in through the ceiling windows, creating golden patterns on the floor. "Susan," Warren called, "we're home." Susan Finch, the housekeeper who had worked for him for 8 years, appeared from the kitchen. She was a woman in her 60s, grey hair always pulled back in a bun, with a kind but efficient demeanor. "Mr. Cade," she greeted him, and then her gaze fell on the girl. "And this must be our special guest." Warren had called Susan the day before, explaining the unusual situation. She had listened without question, one of the qualities he valued most in her. "Susan will take care of the house and prepare our meals," Warren explained to the girl. "She makes the best cookies in the world." The girl observed the housekeeper with the same attentive and suspicious gaze she directed at everything. "Hello, dear," Susan said, crouching down a bit but keeping her distance. "It's a pleasure to meet you." No response, just those large, watchful eyes. "The room is ready," Susan informed Warren. "I followed your instructions. I hope it's suitable." "I'm sure it is. Shall we go up and see?" The last part was directed at the girl, who was still clutching his hand. They ascended the stairs slowly, respecting the 4-year-old's pace. On the 2nd floor, they walked down the hallway to the last door on the right. "This will be your room," Warren announced, opening the door. "What do you think?" It was one of the guest rooms, quickly adapted for a child. The walls were a soft blue. The bed had a white canopy, and there was a small armchair in a corner. A bookshelf with some children's books and a dresser completed the furniture. Nothing too elaborate. Warren hadn't had time to hire a decorator, but it was clean, spacious, and welcoming. The girl entered hesitantly, her eyes scanning every detail of the room. She stopped in front of the window, which offered a view of the backyard. "The bathroom is here," Warren continued, showing her a door nearby. "It has everything you need inside." She turned to him, then walked to the bed and sat on the edge, the bear firm in her embrace. "Are you hungry? Susan has dinner ready." No response, just that fixed, observant gaze. "Well, I'll let you settle in. I'll be downstairs if you need anything." Warren left, closing the door partially. He stood in the hallway for a moment, unsure exactly what to do. He had never lived with a child before, not even when Silas was little. As he worked so much that he was rarely home, he didn't know how to act, what to say. On the ground floor, he found Susan in the kitchen. "How is she?" the housekeeper asked, as she finished preparing dinner. "Quiet. Hasn't said a word. Give her time. Children have their own pace." Warren nodded, though he wasn't sure how long it would take for this little stranger to start trusting him, or if she ever would. They ate in silence that first night. Susan had prepared roasted chicken and potatoes, a simple dish she imagined any child would like. The girl ate little, but she ate. Warren tried to make conversation a few times, without success. After dinner, unsure what else to do, Warren took her to the living room. "Do you want to watch some cartoons?" he asked, turning on the huge flat-screen TV. The girl sat on the sofa, quiet, the bear always close. Warren navigated through the channels until he found a colorful cartoon with talking animals. He sat next to her, keeping a respectful distance. For 20 minutes, they stayed like that, in silence, watching the animated figures on the screen. Warren wasn't really paying attention, more concerned with observing the girl's reactions. She watched with moderate interest, her eyes occasionally darting to examine the room, as if she were memorizing every detail. The next day, the routine repeated. Susan arrived early and prepared breakfast. The girl ate in silence, observing everything. Warren showed her the rest of the house, his office, the reading room, the backyard. She followed him like a small shadow, silent and attentive. That afternoon, Eleanor, the social worker, made her follow-up visit. She spoke with Warren in the living room, while the girl drew at a nearby small table. She asked how they were adapting, if there were any problems. "She still doesn't speak," Warren replied. "Is that normal?" "Every child reacts differently to trauma," Eleanor explained. "The important thing is not to force it. Create a safe and predictable environment. Trust will come with time." Before leaving, Eleanor knelt beside the girl and looked at her drawing, a simple house with a small figure beside it. "That's lovely," she praised. "Is that you?" The girl didn't respond, just kept drawing. Eleanor gave Warren a meaningful look. "Patience," she whispered, before saying goodbye. Days turned into a week. A quiet routine was established. In the morning, breakfast with Susan, then a few hours in the garden when the weather permitted. The girl liked to watch the birds and butterflies. Warren, who usually spent his days on the phone closing deals, found himself working less, preferring to accompany her on her silent explorations. In the afternoon, TV, cartoons, or books. Warren discovered an online children's bookstore and ordered dozens. He would sit with her in the reading room and tell stories, unsure if she was truly listening or just tolerating his presence. At night, the bath ritual, supervised by Susan, and then bedtime. Warren began reading stories to her to sleep, even without receiving any feedback. Sometimes, when he finished, he would watch her for a few minutes before leaving. There was something mesmerizing about her small presence, as if she had created her own gravitational field that he couldn't resist. The house, once so silent and orderly, began to show signs of a child's presence. Drawings stuck to the refrigerator door. Toys, few but well chosen, scattered around the living room. The occasional sound of cartoons. The clinking of her plate being carried to the sink after meals. Warren found himself buying more things for her. Clothes, books, a finger painting kit that Susan reluctantly approved, as long as it was only used at the kitchen table. He didn't know if he was trying to buy the girl's affection or just compensate for everything she probably never had. On the 10th day, Warren was in his office, reviewing some documents, when he noticed the silence. The girl was in the next room, where he had left her drawing. He heard no sound. Concerned, he got up and went to check. He found her standing in front of the photo shelf, one of the few personal items displayed in the austere house. She was staring fixedly at one particular photograph. Warren approached slowly. "That's my son," he explained, pointing to the photo she was looking at. A young man of about 20, smiling reservedly at the camera. "Silas, he lives far away. He's studying." The girl touched the frame with delicate fingers, then looked at Warren as if comparing their faces. "Yes, "He looks like me," Warren confirmed, smiling slightly. "He has my eyes." It was the closest they had come to a real conversation so far. Afterwards, they returned to the comfortable silence they had established. She, drawing. He working, but always aware of her presence. That night, Warren received an email from his lawyer. Initial investigations had found no record of the girl in national databases, no missing child with her description, no cries for help. It was as if she had appeared out of nowhere in that abandoned kennel. The hearing to decide on temporary guardianship was scheduled for the following week. Warren closed his laptop, feeling a mixture of relief and concern. Part of him wanted to find out where she came from, who her family was. Another part, a part that surprised him, feared someone would show up to take her away. He went up to her room at the usual time. She was already in bed, the bear beside her. Warren picked up the night's book, a story about a rabbit who wanted to reach the moon. He sat on the edge of the bed and began to read, as he always did. His voice, normally used to give orders on construction sites or close deals in boardrooms, took on a softer, almost gentle tone. When he finished, he closed the book and smiled at her. "Good night," he said, as he always did. "Sleep tight." He was about to get up when it happened. "My name is Nora." The voice was so small, so fragile, that for a moment Warren thought he had imagined it. He looked at her, his eyes wide with surprise. "What?" he asked, almost breathless. "Nora," she repeated, a little louder this time. "My name is Nora." Warren felt something inside him shatter and rebuild at the same instant. A lump formed in his throat. "Nora," he repeated, savoring the sound. "That's a beautiful name." A small smile of the first appeared on her face. It was brief, almost imperceptible, but it was there. "Nice to meet you, Nora," Warren said, extending his hand formally, as if they were adults introducing themselves at a business meeting. "My name is Warren." To his surprise and delight, she extended her tiny hand and squeezed his fingers. "Warren," she repeated, testing the sound. That night marked a shift, not dramatic or immediate, but definite. In the days that followed, Nora still spoke little, a word or two here and there, but the silence between them had changed in quality. It was no longer a wall, but a bridge under construction. Her drawings, previously dominated by dark colors, began to incorporate livelier shades. She started sleeping better, without the occasional nightmares that had woken her in the first few nights. On a particularly sunny afternoon, while they watched birds in the garden, Warren heard her laugh for the first time, a small, precious sound that made his heart leap. That night, as he received her from Susan after her bath, Warren felt the weight of his new responsibility as never before. This small, fragile child now depended on him. Her well-being, her safety, her happiness, it was all in his hands. In other times, such responsibility would have scared him. He would have looked for a way out, a way to pass the problem to someone else, as he had done so many times with Silas, leaving him in the care of nannies and boarding schools. But now, looking at Nora in her teddy bear pajamas, meticulously brushing her hair, Warren was surprised by the certainty he felt. For the first time in his life, he didn't want to run from a responsibility. He wanted to embrace it, protect it, honor it. Nora needed him, and in some way he didn't yet fully understand. He needed her too. 3 weeks had passed since Nora first spoke his name. Small changes accumulated day by day, like drops forming a stream. Now she responded when called, asked for simple things, water, please, or perhaps more story, and even smiled occasionally, though her smiles were still rare and precious like diamonds. Warren adjusted his life around her. He moved most meetings to video conferences. He declined business trips. He hired someone to supervise the demolition of Thornwood Manor, which had finally begun without the kennel. He had specifically ordered that structure to be preserved without explaining the reason to anyone. On that Saturday morning, the sky was clear and the air crisp. Warren was making pancakes in the kitchen, a newly acquired skill through late-night online tutorials. Susan didn't work weekends, so it was just him and Nora. "Do you want strawberries or banana?" he asked, showing her both options. Nora, sitting at the table with her feet swinging, not reaching the floor, pointed to the strawberries. "Good choice," Warren approved, cutting the fruit into small pieces. As they ate, Warren noticed her watching the garden through the kitchen window. The days were getting warmer, and the flowers were starting to bloom. "Want to take a walk after breakfast?" he suggested. Nora nodded, her mouth full of pancake. "We can visit the pond. There are ducks there." "Ducks," she repeated, as if testing the word. Warren smiled. Each new word she spoke was a small victory. After breakfast, they went out to the garden. Warren had had a swing set and a small slide installed the previous week. Nora ran to the swing, her favorite activity. "Higher?" she asked, as Warren gently pushed her. "Just a little bit more," he agreed, always mindful of safety. As he watched her swing, back and forth against the blue sky, Warren thought about how dramatically his life had changed in such a short time. Before, his weekends were dedicated to informal investor meetings, business dinners, or simply catching up on work. Now they were filled with pancakes, swings, and simple discoveries. After some time in the garden, they walked to the small artificial pond about 500 yards from the house. It was a common area of the luxury community, but rarely frequented. Most residents preferred their private pools. They sat on a bench by the water's edge. Nora threw pieces of bread to the ducks who eagerly approached. "Do you like animals?" Warren asked. "Yes," she replied, watching a smaller duckling swim behind its mother. "I had a cat." Warren froze. It was the first time she had mentioned anything about her past. "You did?" he asked softly, trying not to show too much surprise. "What was he like?" "Orange," Nora said, still looking at the ducks. "His name was Sunny." "Sunny? What a beautiful name for an orange cat." "Mommy chose it." Warren's heart raced. He wanted to ask more, to know everything, but he feared pushing her and making her close up again. He chose to wait, letting her continue if she wished. After a long silence, during which Nora finished feeding the ducks, she looked at Warren. "So Mommy's in heaven now." Warren felt a lump in his throat. "I'm so sorry, Nora." "She got sick," the girl continued, her voice small but clear, coughed a lot. Then she fell asleep and didn't wake up. Warren closed his eyes for a moment, absorbing the weight of those simple words that carried an enormous tragedy. "Were you alone after that?" he asked gently. Nora nodded. "I got hungry and cold. I waited a long time, but Mommy didn't wake up." She hugged her teddy bear, which she carried everywhere. "Then I went to find help." "And you found the mansion," Warren completed. "I walked a long way," she explained. "It was dark. I saw the big house. Nobody answered when I called. There was an open gate in the back. I went in because it was raining." "The kennel," Warren murmured, the pieces fitting together. "It seemed warmer inside," Nora said simply. "I stayed there waiting for someone to show up." And someone did show up, Warren thought. By pure chance, or perhaps not so coincidental. He had been there that specific morning, moments before the demolition. If he had arrived minutes later, or if he had ignored the crying. "How long were you there, Nora?" She shrugged. "Many days. I drank rainwater. I found some things to eat in the trash." She looked at the teddy bear. "But Fred was with me." "Fred," Warren repeated, looking at the worn bear. "That's a good name." "Mommy gave him to me," Nora explained. "She said Fred would protect me when she couldn't." Warren felt his eyes sting. He cleared his throat, trying to push away the emotion. "And he did protect you," he agreed. "Fred did a great job." They sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the ducks swim. Then Nora asked something that caught Warren by surprise. "Are you going to leave too?" The question hit him like a punch. Her voice didn't tremble, but her eyes revealed a deep, real fear. Warren knelt in front of her, so they could look at each other at the same level. "No, Nora, I'm not leaving." "Promise." "I promise." Warren held her small hands in his. "You'll never be alone again." Something changed in her face. A tension Warren hadn't even realized existed seemed to ease. Nora didn't smile, didn't cry, just nodded, as if accepting an important agreement. Back at the house, after lunch, Nora went down for a nap. She still needed them, especially after emotionally intense mornings. Warren went to his office, his mind filled with the morning's revelations. A sick mother who died, a 4-year-old child alone, wandering until she found shelter, days in the abandoned kennel, drinking rainwater. It was a miracle Nora had survived. Sitting at his desk, he looked at Silas's photo that he kept there. His son was now 23 and studying architecture on the East Coast, thousands of miles away. They hadn't seen each other in person for almost 2 years. Warren picked up the phone, considering calling him. What excuse would he give for the sudden call? "Hello, son. I've temporarily adopted a little girl, and it made me realize how much of an absent father I was to you." He put the phone back on the desk and opened his laptop. Maybe an email would be better. Easier to choose the right words without the awkward silence on the other end of the line. He started typing. "Silas, I hope your studies are going well. I know it's been a long time since we really talked. The truth is, something unexpected happened that changed my perspective on a lot of things. I found a child." Warren stopped, reread what he had written, and deleted everything. He started again. "Son, I've been thinking about you a lot lately, about how I let work consume so much of my time that I barely saw you grow up. I wanted to say I'm sorry, that I deeply regret it, that I wish I had been a better father." He sighed and deleted it again. The words seemed empty, insufficient to express what he truly felt. A third attempt. "Silas, remember when you were 5 and broke your arm falling out of that tree in the old backyard? I was in an important meeting and didn't go to the hospital right away. When I finally got there, you already had your cast on, sedated by the pain medication. Your mother didn't speak to me for days. That was just one of many important moments I missed in your life. I chose work countless times over you, convinced I was building a future for our family. But what kind of future is that where father and son are practically strangers?" Warren stopped, feeling a lump in his throat. It was true. All of it. He had been an absent father, always too busy, always with important things to resolve. The divorce, when Silas was 12, only worsened the situation. Alternate weekends quickly turned into monthly visits, then occasional holiday meetings. Now suddenly, with Nora, he was discovering another way to live. He woke up early to prepare her breakfast. He cancelled meetings to take her to the doctor. He spent hours in the garden, just watching her play. He did everything he had never done for Silas. He reread what he had written. He added one last line. "I'd like to see you. There's someone very special I want you to meet." His finger hovered over the send button for several seconds. So many things he wanted to say, so many lost years to recover, but the fear of rejection, of indifference, was too great. Warren saved the message as a draft and closed his laptop. He wasn't ready. The words seemed inadequate, the timing wrong. Maybe tomorrow or the day after, when he was sure of what he really wanted to say. That afternoon, when Nora woke from her nap, Warren took her to buy art supplies, colored pencils, paints, large sheets of paper. She chose everything with meticulous care, examining each color as if it were a vital decision. Back at the house, they set up a space in the living room for her to draw. Warren pushed the coffee table aside and spread a protective canvas on the floor. "What are you going to draw?" he asked, as he organized the materials. "Our family," Nora replied, picking up a blue pencil. Warren froze. "Our family?" "Yes," she confirmed, as if it were obvious. "You, Fice, me, and Fred." Warren felt something warm expand in his chest. He watched in silence as Nora drew 3 figures, a large one, him, a small one, her, and an even smaller one, Fred, the bear. All 3 holding hands under a bright yellow sun. "It's beautiful, Nora. Can we put it on the fridge?" she asked, holding up the drawing for him to see better. "Absolutely," Warren agreed. "It's the perfect place for it." As he fastened the drawing to the refrigerator with colorful magnets, Warren thought again of Silas. How he had never hung up his drawings when he was little. They went straight into a folder his first wife kept, and which probably still existed in some box in her attic. That night, after putting Nora to bed and reading her usual story, Warren returned to his office. He opened his laptop and found the draft of the message to Silas. He reread the words, feeling the weight of each one. His finger moved to the send button, hovered for a moment, and then he closed the email without sending it. He still wasn't ready. The wounds were too deep, the chasm between them too great to be crossed with simple typed words. Perhaps, Warren thought, he needed to fix things with Nora first. Prove to himself that he could be the kind of father a child deserved. Then, when he was sure, he would try to rebuild the bridge with Silas. Closing his laptop, Warren walked to Nora's room to check on her one last time before retiring, a new habit he had developed. He opened the door silently. She slept peacefully, Fred firmly embraced. Her face was relaxed, at peace. Warren felt a wave of protectiveness so intense it almost unbalanced him. "Fike, you'll never be alone again," he whispered, repeating the promise made earlier. Never again. And in his heart, he knew it was a promise he intended to keep, no matter what. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into 2 months. The house on the hill, once so silent and orderly, now had its own soundtrack. Small footsteps running down the hall, occasional laughter, a child's voice humming invented songs while playing with her few, but precious toys. Nora had found her voice. It was more than just words now. They were complete sentences, curious questions, surprising comments that showed how her mind absorbed the world around her. Sometimes, when she thought she was alone, she would sing softly to Fred, her inseparable bear. Warren had overheard her once, standing silently in the hallway, enchanted by the improvised melody about a teddy bear protecting a girl from all monsters. One Sunday morning, Warren woke to the sound of movement in the kitchen. He found Nora standing on a stool, trying to reach the cereal box on the shelf. "Good morning," he said, yawning. "Need some help?" "I don't want cereal," she replied, stepping carefully down from the stool. "I want pancakes, with strawberries and honey." Warren smiled. Pancakes had become her favorite breakfast since he had learned to make them without burning them. In his first attempts, he had produced blackened discs that looked more like carbonized frisbees. Now, after much practice and some secret online tutorials, his pancakes were perfectly golden and fluffy. "Pancakes it is," he agreed, opening the fridge to get the ingredients. "Thou want to help me?" Nora nodded, climbing back onto the stool. Together they mixed the batter, Warren guiding her small hands as she held the wooden spoon, as focused as if performing a delicate operation. "When it's ready, it bubbles," Nora explained, watching the frying pan intently. "Then you flip it. But you can't wait too long or it burns." "Exactly," Warren confirmed, impressed by her memory. "You're paying attention." "I want to learn everything," she declared, with the seriousness only a 4-year-old can have when talking about pancakes. "When I grow up, I'm going to make pancakes for you." The simplicity of the promise touched Warren more deeply than any $1 million contract ever could. As they ate, Warren observed how Nora had changed since she arrived. Her hair, once dull and matted, now shone, falling in soft curls around her face. Her cheeks had gained color, and her eyes, once so wary, now often lit up with curiosity and even joy. She was still thin for her age, but no longer with that alarming fragility of the first few days. "What are we going to do today?" she asked, nibbling on a strawberry. "Can I choose?" "Of course you can. What would you like to do?" Nora thought for a moment, her brow furrowed in concentration, a small trace of honey at the corner of her mouth. "Can we go to the bookstore? I want a new book. I already know the ones we have by heart." Warren smiled. They had visited the children's bookstore at the mall twice, and Nora had been fascinated. She couldn't read on her own yet, but she loved the illustrated books and memorized the stories after Warren read them to her. She often picked up a familiar book and pretended to read to Fred, turning the pages at the exact moment and reciting the words she remembered. "Of course we can." At the bookstore, Nora spent almost an hour carefully examining each option, pulling Warren from one shelf to another. He watched, fascinated, as she evaluated the covers, flipped through the pages, seriously considered each choice. Finally, she decided on a book about a family of turtles who had adventures in the ocean. "So this one," she announced, hugging the book. "The little turtle looks brave." Warren noticed her hesitate, looking at 3 other books she had considered longer. "Let's take this one," he said, picking up the turtle book. "And these too," he added, gathering the other 3 that had caught her eye. Nora's eyes widened. "All of them, all of them." "You didn't need to get so many," she said, as they walked back to the car, hugging the bag of books. "I know I didn't need to," Warren replied, "but I wanted to." That afternoon, sitting in the living room, Warren read all 4 books, one after another. Nora never tired of listening, sitting beside him on the sofa, occasionally pointing to the illustrations and asking questions. "Why's the little fish sad here?" "Because he got lost from his family. But then he finds them again." "Yes, at the end of the story he finds them." "That's good," Nora sighed, relaxing against Warren's arm. "Nobody should be lost." Warren felt a pang in his chest. Behind the simple words, he knew she was thinking of her own story. When they got to the 3rd book, about a rabbit who couldn't sleep, a particularly comical scene made Nora let out a crystal-clear laugh. Warren joined her, and soon they were both laughing together, she pointing to the illustration of the rabbit in upside-down pajamas, and he exaggerating the character's voice. It was the first time they had laughed like that, in complete abandon. Warren realized, to his surprise, that he couldn't remember the last time he had laughed that way. Certainly not since Silas was little, and even then such moments had been rare. Later, after dinner, while Nora drew at the kitchen table, Warren's phone rang. It was Peter Lawson, the private investigator he had hired to look into Nora's past. "Mr. Cade, I have the final results of the investigation." Warren walked to his office, closing the door softly. "I'm listening. We did everything you asked, but we found absolutely nothing. We checked birth records in all states, social service data, police reports on missing children in the last 6 months. We expanded the search to Canada and Mexico too. No child matching her description. It's as if she doesn't officially exist." Warren looked out the window, watching the sun begin to set, painting the sky in shades of orange. "And what about the mother? Any young woman who recently died under the circumstances the girl described?" "Also negative, sir. We checked death records, medical reports on cases of pneumonia or fatal respiratory diseases involving young women with children. No matches. Based on what the girl said, we suspect the mother may have lived off the grid. Perhaps an undocumented immigrant, perhaps someone fleeing a complicated situation. Impossible to say without more information." Warren sighed. Part of him hoped to find some distant family, someone who could fill in the gaps in Nora's story. Another part, a part that surprised him, felt relieved that there was no one with legal rights to her. "Thank you, Peter. Send me the full report." As he hung up, Warren sat in silence for a few minutes. The reality was clear now. Nora truly had no one. No family looking for her, no distant relatives, no previous home to return to, only him. He returned to the kitchen, where Nora had abandoned her drawing and was now playing with a doll Susan had given her. "The doll is sick," she explained seriously when Warren approached. "I'm giving her medicine and vegetable soup, just like you did when I had a cough." Warren smiled, remembering the small cold Nora had had 2 weeks ago and how worried he had been, calling the pediatrician in the middle of the night. "You'll be a great doctor someday." "I don't want to be a doctor," she replied, combing the doll's hair. "I want to build houses like you." Warren laughed, genuinely surprised. "Always like me? Yes. Susan said you build beautiful houses for people to live in. I want to build houses too, big houses, with a garden for children to play." It was an enchanting simplification of what he really did. Buying properties, demolishing old structures, building luxury condos. But at that moment, through her eyes, his work seemed nobler than ever. "That's right," he agreed. "I build houses." Nora continued playing, humming softly a melody Warren recognized as the theme song from one of the cartoons they watched together. As he watched her, Warren felt something strange and familiar at the same time growing within him. A feeling he hadn't experienced in so long that he had almost forgotten what it was like. He looked at that small person so absorbed in her world of make-believe, caring for her sick doll with such tenderness, and knew what was happening. He was becoming a father again, not just a guardian, not just a temporary protector, but a father. The feeling grew so naturally within him that he hadn't even realized how he had transformed. Every pancake made, every book read, every small bandage applied to scraped knees had led him to this moment of clarity. When had he last felt this? With Silas, certainly, but in a different way, obscured by ambitions, by meetings, by unpostponable commitments. Now the feeling emerged pure, without distractions. That night, after putting her to bed and reading the turtle story for the third time, Warren watched her fall asleep. Nora now slept on her side, no longer curled up as in the first few days. Fred, the bear, remained her faithful companion, nestled in the space between her chin and chest. "Good night, Warren," she murmured, already with her eyes closed. "Good night, Nora." Warren turned off the bedside lamp, letting only the soft light from the hallway enter through the partially open door. Before leaving, he looked one last time at the small figure in the bed. "I love you," he whispered, so softly he could barely hear his own voice. But Nora heard. A small smile appeared on her face as she drifted into sleep. "I love you too," she responded with a sigh, already almost in the world of dreams. Warren left the room, feeling different, as if a part of him that had been dormant for years had finally awakened. It wasn't just responsibility he felt. It was that unconditional, protective love only a father can feel. Looking back at the room where Nora slept, Warren realized that, without planning or intention, he had become a father again. And this time, he promised himself he would do things differently. He would do better. Silas's photo looked at Warren from the frame on the shelf, a 23-year-old, with a serious expression and eyes that resembled his own. A formal photo, taken at his high school graduation 5 years ago, the last time they had been together for more than a few tense hours. Warren picked up the photo frame, running his finger over the glass surface. Since Nora entered his life, he thought more and more about Silas, about all the lost opportunities, about all the times he had chosen meetings over baseball games, business trips over school plays, conference calls over real conversations. They had spoken only 3 times in the last year. Short calls, on birthdays and holidays, filled with superficial questions and evasive answers. "How are studies going?" "Fine." "And work?" "Busy as ever." Nothing real, nothing true. The clock on the wall read 9:47 a.m., Sunday. Nora was still asleep. She had stayed up late the night before, building a cushioned fort in the living room. Warren held his cell phone in his hand, Silas's number on the screen. He had mentally rehearsed what he would say, but all the phrases sounded inadequate, insufficient. He took a deep breath and pressed the call button before he lost his nerve. 1 ring, 2, 3. "Hello." Silas's voice sounded sleepy. Warren realized too late that he had probably woken him up. 3-hour time difference, East Coast. "Silas, it's your dad." A pause. "Dad, has something happened?" Silas's voice changed from sleepy to worried in an instant. "No, nothing has happened. Or rather, many things have happened, but nothing bad." Another pause, longer this time. "Okay. It's strange for you to call on a Sunday morning." "It's not my birthday or anything." Warren felt the weight of years of estrangement in that simple sentence. His son was right. He only called on specific occasions, as if following a protocol instead of maintaining a relationship. "I know. Warren closed his eyes, searching for courage. "I needed to talk to you. Really, this time. I'm listening." Warren walked to the window, looking out at the garden where Nora played every day. The words he had rehearsed vanished. Only the truth remained. "I haven't been a good father," he finally said, his voice more shaky than he intended. "I'm sorry." "I truly am." He took a deep breath before adding, "And I miss you." The silence on the other end of the line seemed to last an eternity. Warren could only hear his own breathing and, faintly, the sound of a city waking up, probably the noise coming from Silas's apartment window. "I think I've been waiting for that sentence forever." Silas's response held no anger or bitterness, just a raw honesty that hurt more than any accusation could. I know, Warren replied, and I regret taking so long. What changed? Silas asked. Why now? Warren hadn't planned to tell him about Nora over the phone. He wanted to do it in person, see Silas's reaction, explain everything from the beginning. But something in his son's direct question demanded immediate honesty. Something unexpected happened, something that changed my perspective on a lot of things. Warren hesitated, especially about being a father. Did you meet someone? Silas's question had a cautious tone, as if he feared his father was about to announce a new marriage or relationship. It's not that. Warren almost smiled at the misunderstanding. It's complicated to explain over the phone. There's something important I want to show you. Something you need to see in person. Another silence, briefer this time. Are you in good health? The concern was palpable in Silas's voice. I'm great, son. It's nothing like that. Warren hesitated. It's a good thing. At least, I think it is. He heard Silas sigh on the other end. You're not going to give me any hints. Warren thought of Nora, probably still asleep, clutching her inseparable teddy bear, of how she had transformed his house and his life in just a few months, of how he wanted Silas to meet her. I'd prefer you see for yourself. It's important to me. There was a brief silence, as if Silas was pondering. Our classes end in 2 weeks, he finally said. I can come home after final exams. Home. The word hung between them. Silas still called his father's residence home, even after years of living away. Something in Warren warmed at that. That would be perfect, he responded, trying not to sound too eager. I can send you a ticket if you like. No need. I have enough money. The answer came quickly, almost defensively. Years of Warren's attempts to buy his son's affection with expensive gifts had left scars. Of course, whatever you prefer. An uncomfortable silence settled again. Silas? Yes? Thank you for agreeing to come. It means a lot to me. Don't thank me yet, Silas replied, but there was a slight hint of humor in his voice. I don't even know what you want to show me. Warren smiled. I believe you'll like the surprise. Now I'm curious. Good. I'll see you in 2 weeks then. Yes. I'll text you the flight when I buy the ticket. When they hung up, Warren remained by the window for a long time, the phone still in his hand. It had been easier than he expected, more difficult too in some way. The simple words, I'm sorry, I miss you, had been the hardest he had ever uttered, and also the truest. A soft rustle made him turn. Nora was standing in the office doorway, rubbing her sleepy eyes. Fred held firmly in her arm. Good morning, she said, yawning. Who were you talking to? Warren smiled, putting his phone in his pocket. To my son, Silas. Remember I showed you his picture? Nora nodded, suddenly more alert. The one who looks like you in the photos. That's the one. Warren crouched down to be at her height. He's coming to visit us in 2 weeks. How do you feel about that? Nora's eyes widened. Will he like me? The question, so direct and vulnerable, caught Warren by surprise. He pulled her into a gentle hug. He'll love you. I'm sure of it. What if he doesn't? She insisted, the worry evident in her small voice. Warren pulled back slightly to look her in the eyes. Silas has a good heart. He just needs time sometimes, like all of us. But trust me, it's impossible not to like you. This seemed to satisfy her. Nora smiled, that rare and precious smile that lit up her whole face. Can I show him my drawings? Of course you can. And your books and the swing and anything else you want. As he followed Nora to the kitchen, where she was already talking animatedly about breakfast, Warren felt a mixture of anxiety and hope. In 2 weeks, the two worlds he had kept separate would meet, his past and his present. The son he had neglected and the girl who was teaching him to be a father again. For the first time in years, Warren Cade had something to look forward to beyond contracts and negotiations. The airport was busy that Friday afternoon. Warren checked the arrivals board for the 3rd time. Silas's flight had landed 10 minutes ago. He would soon be coming through those doors. In the 2 weeks since the call, Warren had meticulously prepared for the visit. Silas's room was ready, exactly as he had left it before leaving for college, with a few new touches. The refrigerator was stocked with his favorite foods. Warren had even cancelled all his meetings for the following week, something unthinkable a few months ago. But he hadn't told Silas about Nora. He had decided it was better to explain in person, to see his reaction, to allow the two of them to meet without preconceived expectations. Nora, on the other hand, knew all about Silas. Warren had shown her pictures, told her stories, explained that his son was studying architecture across the country. She had asked 1,000 questions: if he liked to draw like her, if he knew how to make pancakes, if he would bring presents. The last question had made Warren uneasy. Silas didn't know about Nora. How would he bring presents? "He's very busy," Warren explained, feeling guilty about the half-truth. "But I'm sure you two will get along great." The automatic doors opened, and a group of passengers began to exit. Warren stretched his neck, searching among the people, and then he saw him. Silas looked older than in the recent photos he had sent. Taller, perhaps, or just more mature. He wore jeans, a simple t-shirt, and a light jacket. A backpack on his back and a small suitcase completed his luggage. His eyes scanned the concourse until they met Warren's. There was a moment of hesitation before Silas approached. They didn't run to embrace like so many other families around them. Instead, a formal handshake transformed into a brief, awkward hug. "Good flight?" Warren asked, taking Silas's suitcase. Smooth. The flight was delayed a bit on takeoff, Dami, but they made up time in the air." Casual conversation continued in the car, about the weather, about traffic, about changes in the city since Silas's last visit. Nothing about the strange call from 2 weeks ago. Nothing about the high surprise Warren had mentioned. As they entered the road leading to the community where Warren lived, Silas finally brought up the subject. "So, Dad, are you going to tell me what this important thing you wanted to show me is?" Warren gripped the steering wheel tighter. "When we get home, it's better if you see it for yourself." Silas frowned but didn't press. As they entered the house, they were met by silence. Warren had asked Susan to take Nora to buy art supplies. He wanted time to explain everything to Silas before their first meeting. "Nothing's changed around here," Silas commented, looking around the impeccably decorated living room. Warren smiled slightly. If he only knew. "Son, let's put your things in your room and then we can talk." They were going up the stairs when they heard the front door open and a child's voice echo through the foyer. "We're home. Look, Warren, I chose blue and green and yellow paint and—" Nora's voice rapidly approached, followed by the sound of small footsteps running down the hall and then up the stairs. Before Warren could react, she appeared at the top, her face lit up with excitement, a bag of art supplies in her hand. Upon seeing Silas, Nora stopped abruptly, her eyes widening. Silas froze, his backpack still on his back. He looked at the child, then at Warren, his expression a mixture of confusion and shock. "Dad, who is this child?" The tone wasn't accusatory, just genuinely perplexed. Warren took a deep breath. This wasn't how he had planned this moment, but perhaps it was better this way. No script, no preparations. "Silas, this is Nora. Nora, this is my son Silas Bew, who I told you about." Nora, overcoming her initial surprise, smiled shyly. "Hi," she said, waving her free hand. "You look like the picture." Silas still looked confused, but managed a polite smile. "Hi, Nora. What a surprise to meet you." Warren noticed Susan standing at the bottom of the stairs, with a worried expression. "Susan, can you take Nora to arrange her new supplies in her room? Silas and I need to talk." "Of course, Mr. Cade. Shall we go, Nora?" Nora hesitated, looking from Warren to Silas, clearly reluctant to leave, now that the person she had heard so much about was finally here. "Later, you can show all your drawings to Silas," Warren promised. "Now we need to talk for a bit, okay?" She nodded, handing the bag to Susan and descending the stairs. Before following the housekeeper, she looked back one more time, smiling at Silas. In the office, with the door closed, Warren finally told him everything. The day he found Nora in the kennel minutes before the demolition, the impulsive decision to take her home instead of leaving her in the system, how gradually she had started to speak, to trust, to reveal fragments of her story, the sick mother who died, the days alone, wandering until she found shelter in the abandoned kennel. The detective confirmed, there are no records of her anywhere, no family looking for her. It's as if she just appeared out of nowhere that morning. Silas listened in silence, occasionally nodding, his expression unreadable. When Warren finished, he asked, "How long has she been with you?" "Almost 3 months now." "And what happens now? Will social services find a family for her?" Warren hesitated. "That's the thing, Silas. I've been thinking a lot about it." Before he could continue, they heard a soft knock at the door. It was Nora, holding a colorful paper. "Can I come in?" she asked, peeking through the partially open door. Warren looked at Silas, who nodded. "Of course, sweetheart," Warren replied. Nora entered timidly, going straight to Silas. "I made a drawing for you," she said, holding out the paper. "It's you, Warren, and me, and Fred too." Silas took the drawing. It showed 4 figures holding hands, a tall man with grey hair, Warren, a younger man, Silas, a small girl, Nora, and what appeared to be a brown teddy bear, Fred. Above them, a bright yellow sun and the word family, written in large, colourful letters. "You wrote that?" Silas asked, pointing to the word. "Warren taught me the letters," Nora explained proudly. "I know how to write my name too, and yours, Silas. Silas smiled, his first genuine smile since he arrived. "Very good. And it's an incredible drawing." He looked at Warren. "She's smart." "Very," Warren agreed, observing the interaction with a tight heart. Nora, satisfied with the reaction, smiled widely. "Are you going to stay here with us?" she asked. "For a few days," Silas replied, still studying the drawing. "I'm on vacation from school." "Cool. Can I show you my other drawings, and my books, and the swing in the garden?" Silas looked at Warren as if asking for permission. "Why don't you show Silas your room?" Warren suggested. "Then you can see the garden." As Nora left, pulling Silas by the hand, Warren remained in the office, a mixture of relief and apprehension. The meeting had gone better than he expected, but he still didn't truly know what Silas thought about the situation. Hours later, with Nora already in bed after insisting that Silas read her bedtime story, the 2 men sat on the porch with 2 beers. The silence between them was heavy with unasked questions. "She's amazing," Silas finally said, breaking the silence. "Oh, so smart and so resilient," Warren nodded. "I never thought this would happen," he admitted, "that I'd get so attached to someone in such a short time." "You've changed," Silas observed. "You're different with her." The observation contained years of unspoken history between them. Warren felt the weight of those words. "Silas, I know I wasn't the father you deserved. I was always busy, always prioritizing work. It's not about me now," Silas interrupted, without resentment in his voice. "It's about her, about what you're going to do." Warren took a deep breath. "What do you think I should do?" Silas looked at the house, at the window of the room where Nora slept. "She's already chosen you," he said simply. "Now it's your turn to do it." The words hit Warren like a bolt of clarity. That was exactly it. Nora had chosen him from the very first moment, trusting him when she had no reason to trust adults. Now it was up to him to make the conscious, official, permanent choice. "I'm going to start the adoption process," he said, the words sounding right as soon as he spoke them. "I want her to be my daughter, legally. Forever." Silas smiled, raising his beer bottle in a silent toast. The morning was clear when Warren parked in front of Catherine Brenner's office, considered the best family law attorney in the city. The building, an old renovated mansion, maintained its classic elegance outside and modern professionalism inside. "Are you sure you want to go alone?" Silas asked, who had stayed behind with Nora. "Yes, I am. I need to understand all the details first," Warren replied. "Then I'll bring Nora to meet Catherine." Now, sitting in the leather chair before the middle-aged lawyer, Warren felt a mixture of determination and anxiety that he didn't experience even in the biggest deals of his career. "So," Catherine said, after hearing the whole story, "you want to adopt Nora permanently?" "Yes. I've had temporary guardianship for almost 3 months now. I want to make it official, permanent. Catherine nodded, making some notes. From what you tell me, we have a solid case. No identified relatives. You've already established a significant bond. The social worker's reports are favorable. She looked at Warren over her glasses. But I need to be clear about all legal aspects, including potential obstacles. Warren shifted in his chair. What obstacles? The main one is the possibility, however remote, that a relative of Nora's might appear during the process. Catherine shuffled through her notes. According to your private investigation, there are no official records of her. This is unusual, but not impossible in cases of undocumented immigrant mothers or people living off the grid. And if someone appears, the lawyer took a deep breath. It depends on who it is and the circumstances. A close relative, father, grandparents, aunts, uncles, could claim guardianship. The system generally prioritizes biological ties, especially in cases of young children. Warren felt a pang in his chest. Even if she's safe and well with me, even if she doesn't want to go. The law considers the child's best interest, but there's a presumption that being with biological family is generally that best interest. Catherine softened her tone. I'm not saying it will happen, just that we need to be prepared for that possibility. Warren was silent for a moment, absorbing the impact of those words. The idea of losing Nora to someone who had never been present, who had never protected her when she needed it most, was unbearable. What are the real chances of that happening? Honestly, low. 3 months have already passed without anyone looking for her. The investigation found nothing, but the court will require a period of searching for relatives and publishing notices before finalizing the adoption. It's standard protocol. Warren ran a hand through his hair. How long does the whole process take? Under normal circumstances, 6 months to a year. But I can request acceleration, considering the time she's already been with you, and the fact that there are no other adoption candidates. When Warren left the office, he carried a folder full of forms to fill out and a new concern weighing on his shoulders. The possibility, however remote, of losing Nora was like a shadow hanging over his determination. At home, he found Nora and Silas in the garden. She was showing him how she could swing by herself without being pushed. Look, Warren, look how high I go. Warren forced a smile, hiding his concern. Amazing, Nora. You're almost flying. During dinner, Warren remained quiet, answering Nora's questions with short sentences, his mind elsewhere. When it was time to put her to bed, she surprised him with a question. Are you sad with me? The question caught him off guard. Of course not. Why would you think that? You're different. You didn't smile today. You didn't tell a funny story at bath time. Warren sat on the edge of the bed, touched by her perception. I'm not sad with you, Nora. I never could be. I'm just thinking about grown-up things. Boring things. Yes, very boring things. He genuinely smiled for the first time that night. But nothing for you to worry about. Nora didn't seem convinced, but she accepted the explanation. Warren read her usual story, gave her a goodnight kiss and left, leaving the door ajar. In the hallway, he found Silas waiting. How was it with the lawyer? Warren motioned for him to follow him to the office, where they could talk without Nora hearing. The process seems straightforward, he explained, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey, but there are potential complications. Silas listened intently, as Warren explained everything Catherine had said. When he finished, his son was silent for a moment. I understand your concern, he finally said, but the chances really seem small. Even small, they exist. What if someone appears out of nowhere, claiming rights over her? Someone who never cared, who didn't even look for her when she needed it most. Warren took a long gulp. Sir, the idea makes me sick. Maybe you should keep it in perspective and not let fear dominate your actions, Silas suggested. Nora needs you to be stable. Warren nodded, thoughtfully. You're right, I need to stay calm for her. But in the weeks that followed, even after Silas returned to college, Warren couldn't completely shake off the worry. The adoption process moved forward. Forms were filled out, interviews conducted, home visits performed. Each step brought the adoption closer, but also kept alive the possibility of complications. Nora, sensitive as she was, noticed the change. She started asking more frequently if Warren loved her, if she would stay forever. She began having occasional nightmares again, waking up crying in the middle of the night. "She's picking up on your anxiety," Susan explained after a particularly difficult night when Nora had woken up 3 times calling for Warren. Children are like emotional sponges. Warren blamed himself. His worry was affecting Nora, making her regress. He tried to hide his feelings better, to feign a confidence he didn't fully feel, but she seemed to see through the facade. One night, while talking to Silas on the phone, Warren vented his frustration. "I'm messing everything up. She was doing so well, so confident. Now she's anxious again, insecure. And it's all my fault." "It's not your fault to be worried," Silas replied. "It's natural, you love her, but it's affecting her. Then be honest, explain it, in a way she understands. Children notice when we're hiding something. Maybe the uncertainty is worse than the truth." Warren thought about the advice for several days. Finally, on a quiet afternoon while they colored together at the kitchen table, he decided to follow Silas's suggestion. "Nora," he began, choosing his words carefully, "remember when I told you I was thinking about grown-up things?" She nodded, without looking up from her drawing. "I'm trying to do something very important. I'm trying to make you officially my daughter. Forever." This captured her attention. Her eyes met his, filled with hope and fear at the same time. "Forever, really?" "Really? With papers and everything? It's called adoption. Like in the books, when the child gets a new family." Warren smiled. They had read a children's book about adoption together, part of the preparation suggested by the social worker. "Exactly like that. But sometimes it takes time, and sometimes there are complications. Complications. Difficulties. Things we need to sort out first." Warren took a deep breath. "And that makes me a little worried sometimes. That's why I've been different." Nora was silent, absorbing the information. "Sayas, do you still want me to be your daughter?" she finally asked, her voice small. Warren felt his heart clench, more than anything in the world. "Then it will work," she declared, with the absolute simplicity of a child. "You always get what you want. You're Warren." Warren laughed, touched by her unwavering trust. "I'll do everything I can," he promised. Absolutely everything. That night, Warren received a call from Silas. "How is she?" "Better. We talked today, like you suggested." "And did it help?" "I think so. She seems calmer." "Me too, actually." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I've been thinking," Silas finally said, "now that you know what it's like to be a father, don't give up." Not because of fear. The simplicity of the phrase hit Warren deeply. "I won't give up," he assured. "I promise I'll do everything in my power to protect her. I know you will, and for that, I'm proud of you." Silas's words echoed in Warren's mind in the following months. The adoption process moved with the speed of careful bureaucracy, slow but continuous. Catherine worked miracles, accelerating what she could, but there were still inevitable procedures. The notices were published. No one appeared. Background checks were completed. Impeccable. The social workers' reports were finalized, extraordinarily positive. Finally, 6 months after the process began, came the day of the final hearing. Warren bought Nora a new blue dress, her favorite color. Silas flew in to be present. Even Susan closed the house to accompany them. The courtroom was imposing, with its dark wood panels and high ceiling. Nora clutched Warren's hand tightly, impressed by the environment. Silas walked beside them, occasionally smiling at Nora when she looked at him, seeking reassurance. When they entered the courtroom, Catherine was already waiting for them. Judge Porter, a man in his 60s with a serious but not stern expression, presided over the session. The hearing began with formalities. Catherine presented the case, highlighting the most relevant points. The social worker confirmed her favorable recommendations. Warren answered some basic questions about his financial situation, his home, his plans for Nora's education. Finally, the judge looked directly at Warren. "Mr. Cade, I am satisfied with the technical aspects of this case. All requirements have been met, all checks performed. But adopting a child is not like acquiring property or closing a business deal." The judge adjusted his glasses. "I am looking at a man who built a career buying and tearing down the old to build the new, who spent decades focused on business, not relationships. I have to ask, are you fully aware of what you are taking on? Of the permanent responsibility involved in raising a child? The room fell silent. Warren felt the weight of all eyes. He looked at Nora, sitting beside him, small in the oversized chair, watching him with those eyes that had seen so much in so little time. "Your Honor," he began, his voice firmer than he expected, "when I found Nora in that abandoned kennel, I thought I was saving her. I only realized later that she saved me." Warren paused, choosing his words carefully. "She gave me back something I didn't even know I had lost. My heart." The judge didn't react immediately, studying Warren as if looking for signs of insincerity. "I spent my life building buildings and accumulating money," Warren continued. "I believed that was success. Nora taught me that a laugh is worth more than $1 million contract. That reading the same story for the 10th time is more important than any meeting. That being present, truly present, is the greatest gift we can give someone." He glanced at Silas briefly. "A lesson I learned too late with my son, but one I will not waste with her." Warren took a deep breath before concluding, "I am fully aware of what I am taking on. And more than that, I desire this responsibility with all my being." The judge observed Warren for a long moment, then looked at Nora. "And you, young lady, do you want Mr. Cade to be your father?" Nora nodded vigorously. "Yes, he makes the best pancakes." A wave of soft laughter rippled through the room. Even the judge smiled. "Well, that certainly is an important qualification." He looked back at the documents in front of him, then raised his eyes. "Having reviewed all the facts and circumstances of this case, and considering the best interest of the child, this court grants the full adoption of Nora by Warren Cade, with all rights and responsibilities inherent in the father-daughter relationship." A gavel strike sealed the decision. For a moment, Warren stood motionless, almost disbelieving. Then he felt Nora's small arms wrap around his neck as she jumped into his lap. "Are we family now? Really and forever?" she asked, her eyes shining. "Yes, Nora," Warren replied, hugging her without fear of showing emotion. "Really and forever." Silas approached, placing a hand on his father's shoulder. "Congratulations, you two." Nora extended an arm, including Silas in the hug. After a moment of surprise, he leaned in, completing the family circle. As they left the courtroom, Nora in Warren's arms, her blue dress contrasting with his dark suit, Catherine smiled. "You make a beautiful family." Warren looked at Nora, then at Silas walking beside them. The word family had never held so much meaning. Nora, the girl found in an abandoned kennel, was no longer alone, and Warren, the man who had spent his life building walls instead of bridges, would never again be empty. 6 months had passed since the official adoption. Spring had arrived, painting Warren's garden with vibrant green hues and colorful flowers. The house windows, once always closed, now remained open during the day, allowing the gentle breeze to circulate through the rooms. It was a quiet Saturday. Warren, who would have spent the weekend reviewing contracts, was now in the backyard, wrestling with poles and tarps. "Cass, are you sure you don't want to read the instructions?" Nora asked, sitting on the grass, observing her father's efforts with a mixture of amusement and concern. Warren smiled, adjusting his glasses that insisted on sliding down his nose as he leaned over the half-erected tent. "Instructions are for those who don't know how to improvise," he replied, trying to fit a pole into the wrong spot for the 3rd time. "But you're doing everything wrong," Nora laughed, pointing at the crooked structure. Warren feigned indignation. "Young lady, I've built skyscrapers. I think I can put together a simple camping tent." Skyscrapers had instructions, Nora observed, with the ruthless logic of her almost 5 years. She stood up, picking up the crumpled manual Warren had discarded. "Look, it says here the blue part goes first." Warren accepted defeat with a dramatic sigh. "Very well, Architect Nora. Show me how it's done." Together, following the instructions she read, in reality interpreting the drawings with surprising accuracy, they began to assemble the tent correctly. Nora's small hands held the stakes while Warren secured the poles. "This is going to be so cool," she commented, excited. "Are we going to sleep right here, with the stars?" "That's the plan. Our first camping night. "Can Fred come too?" she asked, referring to her inseparable teddy bear. Of course, Fred is part of the family. They were so focused on the task that they didn't notice the car parking. Only when they heard the garden gate open did they look up. "Looks like I arrived just in time," Silas observed, carrying a tray with glasses and a large pitcher. "I brought reinforcements for the campers." "Silas!" Nora ran to him, hugging his legs. "You came?" "I promised, didn't I?" He smiled, affectionately ruffling her hair. "Wouldn't miss the big campout for anything." Warren watched his son approach. Silas visited more frequently now, one weekend a month when possible. He had decided to transfer to a closer university next semester, to be closer to family, as he had explained. The word still sounded new and precious when he used it. "It's real orange juice," Silas explained, placing the tray on the small garden table. "But I squeezed the oranges in the kitchen while you two battled with the tent." "We're almost getting it," Nora informed him, pulling him by the hand. "You can help with the top part, because it's too high for me." The three worked together, laughing at mistakes, celebrating small progress. Warren, accustomed to delegating tasks and supervising from afar, was now on his knees in the grass, his hands dirty with soil, his face flushed from effort and the afternoon sun. When they finally finished, the blue tent stood in the center of the lawn, not perfectly aligned, perhaps, but sturdy and welcoming. "We did it!" Nora cheered, clapping her hands. "An architectural masterpiece," Silas joked, pouring juice for everyone. They sat on the grass around the tent, drinking the cold juice. Nora talked animatedly about the marshmallows they would roast later when it got dark. Silas told stories from college, plans for the future. The conversation flowed naturally, without rush or formality. Warren remained quieter, savoring not just the juice, but the moment. He watched his son, now more relaxed and open than he had ever been in adolescence. He watched Nora, whose eyes no longer carried that constant fear of the first few days. He watched the sky, which was beginning to tint orange and pink and announcing dusk. "What are you thinking about, Dad?" Silas asked, noticing his silence. Warren smiled. "How everything changes." "For the better?" Nora asked, tilting her head. "Definitely for the better." Nora, satisfied with the answer, got up to explore the inside of the tent, taking Fred with her. Silas took the opportunity to approach his father. "She's doing so well," he commented. "So happy." "We all are," Warren replied. "Even you seem lighter." Silas nodded. "It's hard not to be affected by her joy. It's contagious." When Nora called Silas to help her arrange the sleeping bags inside the tent, Warren was left alone for a moment, taking in the scene, his son and his daughter, laughing together as they arranged their small, improvised camp. The house in the background, no longer a cold and impersonal structure, but a true home, with drawings on the refrigerator, toys in the hallway, new photos on the walls. In his long career, Warren Cade had built towers that touched the sky, luxurious condominiums, imposing shopping centers. He had transformed abandoned plots into valuable properties, demolished the old to erect the new. His name was etched on inauguration plaques throughout the city, but now, observing that simple blue tent and the two most important people in his life, he finally understood the most fundamental truth. No matter how much you've built in the world, nothing is worth more than building a home. Warren smiled and joined his family, under the sky that was slowly filling with stars. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like, because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.